go to the stage. She has written around 9 or 10 books on Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Kashmir. She actually went to university with Benazir Bhutto and was close friends with her. She's featured on a lot of TV shows, news reports, and everything. So let's just please give her a hand. It's Victoria Soka.
We've heard some stories tonight which are very moving. I'm going to tell you a very quick story which contributed to my own involvement in Kashmir. In, I think, November of 1980, before a lot of you were born, I was invited to dinner by an elderly lady in London. And she said, "There's someone here I think you would like to meet." It was just the three of us for dinner, and the other guest was Bashir Butt. Bashir isn't here tonight, but for the first time a number of his family, who have also become my family, are here. And it's thanks to that dinner in 1980 that I have spent the past 30 years studying Kashmir. It was because of the friendship I developed with Bashir and a visit I paid to India in 1981 that I became aware of the Kashmir dispute. I had indeed spent time in Pakistan and was a very close friend of Benazir Bhutto. And she also was interested in Kashmir. And when the insurgency began, she said to me, "You don't all know what they're doing in Kashmir." She knew I was working for the BBC at the time. And she said, "Why don't you come back and write on Kashmir?" And because I had that friendship with Bashir, and because of my friendship with Benazir, I thought, yes, that's what I'll do. I'll write on Kashmir. I'll try and write a book which explains Kashmir from all angles. From the Pakistani side, from the Indian side, but most importantly, what I felt was missing from all the reports I'd read to date on Kashmir was one from the Kashmiri side, from the Kashmiri perspective. And to do this, I had to go and visit all parts of Kashmir. I've travelled widely in the state we now see on the map. I've been to Azad Kashmir. I've been up through the Neelam Valley. I've been to Mirpur. I've been to Muzaffarabad. I've been up to Gilgit. I've gone the whole way up the Karakoram Highway to the Punjab Pass. I've been in the valley of Kashmir, all over the valley. I've been to Ladakh. I've been to Leh, to Kargil, to Jammu. And on the basis of what I've seen and read, I would concur with the Consul General, as we know, that Kashmir remains the oldest dispute on the agenda of the United Nations. It's both a territorial dispute and it's a dispute about the rights of people. Just in the time I have tonight, I want to focus on 5 landmark events, 5 landmark themes, which I believe have contributed to the issue as we know it today. The first is obvious, partition. At partition, how different could the fate of Kashmir have been if certain events had happened? But as we know, the fact of partition meant that British India was divided. The princely rulers, 565 or however many there were at the time, had the right to choose which dominion they should accede to, either India or Pakistan. They were given certain preconditions, and that precondition was that the ruler should take into account the complexion of his people. The Maharaj of Jammu and Kashmir, as we know, was very firmly told that he should take into account the fact that the majority of his population were Muslim. He didn't accede either to India or Pakistan, and the rest, as we know, is history from the point of view of the state. The Maharaja chose eventually to accede to India, and the tribal rising which took place resulted in the de facto of the state, as we can see by the line of control on this map here. Had there not been partition, obviously the fate of Kashmir would have been very different, but we're dealing with the realities of politics as they are. The second big landmark, of course, is the plebiscite, the unheld plebiscite. The fact that after partition, both the leaders of India and Pakistan agreed that they would hold a plebiscite. This plebiscite was endorsed by recommendations of the United Nations on how to hold a plebiscite. And it's because of this plebiscite that this issue remains on the agenda of the United Nations. The plebiscite has never been held. As we know, the Kashmiris have never been given what they consider their right of self-determination. We hear a lot about right of self-determination in the present day, but the right of self-determination runs as a steady stream, a theme, throughout Kashmir history since partition. The demand of the Kashmiri people to have their right of self-determination. The third landmark, which also I think is important, is the developing politics in the Kashmir under an Indian administration. The landmark elections of 1987, I think, really were a turning point in the history of Kashmir. I'm obviously going very quickly over these certain landmark events. Other events have taken place. But I think the 1987 elections really contributed to the situation as we have today. These elections were blatantly, as we now know, rigged. And the fact that a voice couldn't be given within the political arena meant that you had the insurgency, the militancy. I spoke during my travels in the Valley of Kashmir to many militants who said, we tried the political route, we took up the gun only because we were not heard in the political arena. Very few people remember that Syed, the chairman of the United Jihad Council in Muzaffarabad, actually contested those 1987 elections. And I think what we've seen since the 1990s, the 1980s, has been the steady erosion of a political forum for Kashmiris who are disaffected, who want something other than what is the status quo. And it's, in my opinion, essential that their voice should be heard. The fourth great landmark, of course, is post-September the 11th, because after September the 11th, anything which was categorized as freedom fighting became terrorism. There was clearly a distinction before. People felt they were taking up the gun as the American revolutionaries took up the gun against the British because they felt they had to use force, they had to have an armed struggle if their political grievances weren't met at the negotiating table. But after September the 11th, there was a general revulsion against using the gun, and every aspect with the gun was considered to be terrorism. Militants also realized that the gun had served a purpose and that eventually the issue had to be resolved at the negotiating table. This brings me to the fifth landmark, the peace process. Started in 2004, but here we are 6 years down the road without the peace process having really achieved anything for the Kashmir issue. I've on numerous occasions interviewed President Musharraf, and he outlined what he felt might be achieved by the peace process, even going so far as to say perhaps the plebiscite wasn't the way forward so long as another alternative, fairer way was found in terms of resolving the issue. But unfortunately, as we know, the talks between India and Pakistan have faltered. Just recently, we've had a vaguely encouraging sign that the Indian Foreign Secretary has agreed to stay in touch. I think it's absolutely imperative for the Kashmir issue to remain at the center of any talks between India and Pakistan, because without the Kashmir issue being resolved, you're not going to resolve the instability in the region, which also relates to Afghanistan. I was beginning to write on Kashmir. Dr. Nabeel, Kashmir American Council.